The cashier's sympathetic wince wasn't for the declined card, but for the life I was about to discover had been systematically emptied by the woman I loved. The beep was the first sign. It wasn't the friendly, affirmative chime of a successful transaction. It was a sharp, clinical, two-tone rejection, a digital nope. I swiped my card again, the one linked to our joint account, the one we use for everything, groceries, gas, bills, the lifeblood of our household. The young cashier, bless her heart, offered a sympathetic wince. It says, "Declined, sir. Do you want to try it again?" The line behind me seemed to stretch for miles. I could feel the collective sigh of a dozen impatient shoppers. A woman with a screaming toddler in her cart was giving me a look that could curdle milk. My face burned hot. I was that guy. Is the guy holding everyone up because his card didn't work? "Yeah, one more time," I mumbled, my voice tight. I ran it through again, chip first this time, as if the method of payment was the problem. The same brutal beep echoed through the checkout lane. Declined. My cart was full. Not with luxuries, but with the mundane necessities of a life we were building together. Diapers for our 1-year-old son, Leo, the organic baby formula that was ridiculously expensive, but the only kind that didn't upset his stomach. Chicken breasts, broccoli, the ingredients for the shepherd's pie my wife, Sarah, loved. I'd even picked up a bottle of her favorite rosé and a small bouquet of daisies just because it was Tuesday and I loved her. Now, the daisies seemed to be mocking me from their perch next to the bread. I don't understand, I stammered. I'm pulling out my phone to check the banking app. There should be plenty in there. I just got paid on Friday. The cashier just nodded, her eyes already scanning for the next customer. I'm going to have to ask you to step aside, sir. The humiliation was a physical thing, a heavy cloak I had to drag with me as I pushed my card of rejected dreams to the side of the customer service desk. I frantically tapped at my phone screen, my thumb slipping on the glass. I pulled up the banking app, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The balance loaded, my breath caught in my throat. $7.23. $7. My entire paycheck, over $3,000, had been deposited 4 days ago. We had bills, yes, but they weren't due for another week. The mortgage payment was still sitting in our savings, thank God. But the checking account, our operational fund, was decimated. I scrolled down, my blood running cold as I looked at the transaction history, and that's when I saw it. It wasn't one big, fraudulent charge. It was a death by 1,000 cuts, a dozen different Zelle and Venmo transfers, all sent to the same person, Jessica, Sarah's younger sister. The memos were sickeningly sweet. "For groceries, love you, sis. $250. Emergency car repair. $600. Help with rent, don't tell Mark. $1,200. That last one felt like a punch to the gut. It went on, a cascade of our money flowing into the black hole that was my sister-in-law's life. The last transfer, for $300, was sent just an hour ago. The memo simply read, "For fun money." Now, I had to abandon the cart, save for the diapers and formula which I paid for with the crumpled emergency cash I keep in my wallet. The daisies and the wine were left behind. The drive home was a blur of white-hot rage and icy dread. This wasn't the first time Jess had needed help. She was a professional damsel in distress, flitting from one self-inflicted crisis to another, always with her hand out. And Sarah, my kind, compassionate, beautiful Sarah, was her biggest enabler. We'd fought about it before. I had laid down the law a few months ago after Jess borrowed $500 for a security deposit on an apartment she never moved into, and we later saw her post pictures of a new designer handbag on Instagram. "No more, Sarah," I had said. "We have our own family to think about. We're saving for a house. Why, we can't be her personal ATM." She had cried. She had agreed. She had promised. I walked into our small apartment, the baby formula clutched in my hand like a shield. The air smelled of garlic and herbs. Sarah was in the kitchen, humming along to some pop song on the radio, stirring a pot on the stove. She turned to me, a radiant smile on her face. "Hey, honey, you're back early. I started dinner. Hope you don't mind." Her smile was so genuine, so full of love, that for a split second I thought the banking app must have been a mistake. "Sarah," I said, my voice dangerously calm. I set the formula and diapers on the counter with a thud. "We need to talk." Her smile faltered. She saw the look on my face and wiped her hands on a dish towel. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." "My card was declined at the grocery store," I said, watching her face carefully. A flicker of something crossed her eyes. Fear? Guilt? Declined for $150 worth of groceries. Can you think of any reason why our joint account, which had over $3,000 in it on Friday, would only have $7 in it today? She paled, her grip tightening on the towel. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I was going to tell you." "Tell me what, Sarah? That you've given away nearly our entire month's budget? Again?" My voice was rising now, the carefully constructed calm cracking under the pressure. "That you lied to me. We have a baby. What if there was an emergency? What if Leo got sick?" "It was an emergency," she insisted, her voice getting shrill. "Jess was about to be evicted. Her car broke down. She lost her job. What was I supposed to do, Mark? Let my sister be homeless?" "The same story every single time," I shot back, pulling out my phone and shoving it in her direction. "What about this emergency?" I pointed to the last transaction. $300 for fun money? What kind of emergency is that? She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Tears started to well up. "You don't understand. She's family. You're my family," I yelled, my chest heaving. "Leo is your family. This life we are building. This is your family, and you are setting it on fire to keep your sister warm." I was shaking with a rage so profound it scared me. I paced the small kitchen, running my hands through my hair, trying to find an anchor in the storm of betrayal. My eyes scanned the room, or landing on the pile of mail on the counter I was supposed to sort through. And then I saw it. Tucked beneath a credit card offer and a water bill was a glossy trifold pamphlet. The cover was a breathtaking picture of a tropical paradise. Overwater bungalows, crystal clear turquoise water. In bold letters it read, "Escape to the Maldives." My blood turned to ice. I slowly reached out and picked it up. It felt heavy, expensive. "What's this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Sarah's eyes widened in panic. "It's nothing, just junk mail." But I could feel something inside, a slick, heavy paper. I unfolded the pamphlet. Tucked neatly into the centerfold was a booking confirmation, a reservation for an all-inclusive 5-star resort for 2 people for 10 days. The charge date was yesterday, and the names on the ticket weren't Mark and Sarah. They were Sarah and Jessica. The world seemed to shrink to the glossy pamphlet in my hand, the scent of garlic from the stove, the faint sound of the radio, the hum of the refrigerator. It all faded into a dull roar in my ears. All I could see were the names Sarah and Jessica printed in crisp, professional font next to flight details and resort information. The Maldives. It was a place we'd dreamed of going, someday, for a big anniversary. When we had money, when we had a house, when our life was stable. It was our someday trip, not her right-now escape. "Sarah," I said again, my voice eerily flat. I couldn't seem to make it louder. "What is this?" She finally broke, the tears she'd been holding back spilling over. "I was going to tell you. And it was supposed to be a surprise." The absurdity of that statement almost made me laugh. A hysterical, unhinged sound was building in my chest. "A surprise? A surprise that you drained our bank account dry and booked a secret international vacation with your sister? How exactly were you planning on surprising me with that? By sending me a postcard?" "No, it's not like that," she sobbed, taking a step toward me. I instinctively took a step back. The gesture wounded her. I could see it in her eyes, but I couldn't help it. I felt like I was standing next to a stranger. Jess has been so down. Her breakup was awful, losing her job. She's just broken, Mark. I thought this would give her something to live for, a light at the end of the tunnel. A light? I held up the brochure. This isn't a light, Sarah. This is a 5-star, all-inclusive tropical bonfire fueled by our son's future. We are saving for a down payment. We have a college fund we just started for Leo. Or did you forget about him? Of course I didn't forget about him, she shrieked, the victimhood now lacing her tone. My mother was going to watch him. It's all arranged. You arranged for our son to be watched for 10 days so you could go on vacation, and you didn't think to mention it to his father, his other parent? The words felt like acid in my mouth. And you paid for it by lying and stealing from our family. Don't you dare try to justify this. Don't you dare pretend this is some noble act of sisterly love. I started pacing again, the small kitchen feeling like a cage. Let me see if I can piece this together. You've been siphoning money from our account for weeks, maybe longer. Little bits here and there so I wouldn't notice. Then you get bold, a few hundred for groceries, $1,000 for rent, and then the grand finale. Wiping us out for Jessica's fun money so you two could go live it up in paradise while I'm at the grocery store getting humiliated, wondering how I'm going to pay for our son's formula. You make it sound so ugly, she whispered, wrapping her arms around herself. It is ugly, Sarah. What part of this isn't ugly? I stopped in front of her, my voice dropping to a dangerous low. You looked me in the eye and you promised. You promised me you would stop funding her lifestyle. You gave me your word. Was any of that real? Or were you planning this even then? She wouldn't look at me. She just stared at the floor, in her shoulders shaking. The silence was her confession. The rage I felt was so pure, so absolute it was almost calming. The storm had passed, leaving behind a cold, hard clarity. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a calculated, long-term deception. My eyes fell back to the booking confirmation in my hand. Something wasn't right. Something was nagging at the back of my mind. I smoothed it out on the counter, my finger tracing the line items. Flights, the bungalow, the all-inclusive package. My eyes landed on the total. $12,450. $12,000. My blood ran cold all over again. I pulled my phone back out, my fingers shaking as I opened the banking app. I scrolled through the transfers to Jessica again, adding them up in my head. $250, $600, $1,200, another $400. Yeah, and a few smaller ones. The $300 for fun money. All told, it was a little over $3,000. A devastating amount to be sure, but it wasn't $12,000. Sarah, I said, the newfound calm in my voice making her flinch. This vacation cost over $12,000. The money you took from our checking account and sent to Jess, it's not enough. It's not even close. Where did the rest of it come from? Her head shot up, her eyes wide with a new, more potent kind of terror. This was a different fear from being caught. This was the fear of a much bigger lie about to be exposed. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She just shook her head, a silent plea for me to stop. But I couldn't. I looked at the booking confirmation again, searching for the payment details. There it was, in small print at the bottom. Paid in full via Platinum Visa, card ending in 8431. A wave of confusion washed over me. My Visa ends in 1129. I don't have a Platinum Visa. I instinctively pulled my wallet from my back pocket, flipping through my 2 cards, my debit card and my 1 single credit card, just as I thought. Sarah, whose card is this? I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. I knew, somehow, I already knew the answer was going to destroy me. She just stared at me, her face ashen, tears streaming down her cheeks. My gaze darted back to the pile of mail on the counter, and I saw it. An envelope I'd overlooked before. It was from a major bank, one I didn't have an account with. It was thicker than a normal letter, and it was addressed to me. With trembling hands, I ripped open the envelope. Inside was a welcome letter, and attached to the letter, gleaming under the kitchen light, was a brand new platinum-colored credit card. My name, Mark Davis, was embossed on the front. The number ended in 8431. Tucked behind it was the first statement. The balance due was $9,512. The single transaction listed was from Maldives Luxury Travel. She hadn't just drained our savings, she had opened a line of credit in my name and plunged us into debt without me ever knowing. The plastic card felt alien in my hand. It was my name, my identity, but it was a complete stranger to me. My signature wasn't on the application. I hadn't answered any security questions. This piece of plastic represented a violation so deep, so personal, it went far beyond the money. She had stolen my name. She had forged my consent. She had wrapped a $9,000 noose of debt around my neck, and I hadn't even felt it tighten. How? The word came out as a strangled whisper. I looked at Sarah, truly looked at her, and the woman I thought I knew was gone. In her place was a criminal, a con artist who had shared my bed and borne my child. How did you do this? How did you open a credit card in my name without me knowing? She finally collapsed into one of the kitchen chairs, her body racked with shuddering sobs. I'm so sorry, Mark, she cried into her hands. I never meant for it to get like this. Don't you dare say you're sorry, I hissed, the words dripping with venom. Sorry is what you say when you bump into someone. This is fraud. This is a crime. So tell me how. It was easy, she whispered, her voice muffled by her palms. They send those pre-approved offers in the mail all the time. One came a few weeks ago. It just needed your social security number and date of birth to activate it. My stomach lurched. Of course she had that information. We had files locked away with all our important documents: marriage certificate, birth certificates, social security cards. You went into our files? You took my social security card? She nodded, unable to speak. The image of her, my wife, sneaking into our office while I was at work or asleep, carefully extracting my most personal information to commit a felony against me, it was a monstrous betrayal. The Maldives trip suddenly made a horrible kind of sense. It wasn't just a vacation, it was an escape. And they weren't just running away for a good time, they were running from the consequences of what she had done. Maybe she thought I wouldn't find out until they were already gone. And Jess? I asked, the name tasting like poison. Was she in on this? Did she know you were stealing from your husband, from your son, to pay for her trip? She didn't know about the credit card, Sarah stammered, which I knew was a half-truth at best. She just knew I would handle it. She trusts me. She trusts you to what? Pave her way with stolen money? My God, Sarah. The transfers, the lies, the credit card. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a plan, a conspiracy between the two of you to defraud me. It wasn't a conspiracy, she insisted, looking up at me, her face a mess of tears and mascara. I just wanted to do something nice for her. And for me. You're always so focused on saving, on the future, on being responsible. We never have any fun, Mark. I just wanted to feel alive for a little while. Her words hit me harder than a physical blow. All those extra shifts I'd picked up. The weekends spent doing freelance work instead of watching football. The times I said no to going out with friends so we could put another $100 into Leo's college fund. All of that sacrifice, all of that responsibility she was now throwing in my face was for us. For the family she was so willing to bankrupt for a 10-day party on a beach. Fun? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. You think putting us nearly $10,000 in secret debt is fun? You think having our account so empty I can't buy diapers is fun? I do all of that. I work myself to the bone so that you and Leo can have a secure life, a home, a future. And you call that boring? You spit on that so you can go get a tan with your leech of a sister. I couldn't be in that room with her anymore. I needed air. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, grabbing my keys from the hook by the door. "Where are you going?" she cried, scrambling to her feet. "Mark, don't leave. We can fix this. I'll cancel the trip. I'll pay it back." "Pay it back with what, Sarah?" I spun around at the door, my hand on the knob. "With the $7 in our bank account? With the job you don't have? No, I will pay it back. Because it's in my name. You made sure of that." I opened the door. "I'm going to my parents' house. I need to think." "No, Mark, please," she begged, rushing towards me and grabbing my arm. "Don't tell them! Please, I'm begging you, don't tell your parents. They'll hate me forever. We can handle this ourselves." Her panic was palpable. The idea of my parents knowing what she'd done terrified her more than the crime itself. They loved her. They treated her like the daughter they never had. The thought of losing that was her biggest fear, and in that moment, seeing that selfish fear in her eyes, I knew exactly what I had to do. I pulled my arm from her grasp. "It's a little late for that, Sarah. They're going to find out. In fact, everyone is." I walked out, shutting the door on her desperate pleas. I got in my car and just drove. I didn't go to my parents' house. I drove to a park a few miles away and sat there in the dark, the engine off, the silence screaming at me. Yeah, my marriage was a lie. My wife was a thief. My finances were a disaster. I pulled out my phone, my mind racing. What were my options? Divorce? Police? The thought of reporting my wife, the mother of my child, for fraud made me feel sick to my core. But what she had done, I needed proof. I needed to understand the full scope of the damage. My mind went back to the bank transfers, all sent through Zelle and Venmo, all from her phone. She had her phone with her, but her laptop was at home. We shared an iCloud account, photos, notes, messages, a long shot, but maybe... My heart pounded as I opened the messaging app on my phone and navigated to her message thread with Jessica. I scrolled up, my thumb flying across the screen, going back weeks. There were dozens of messages about the trip, giddy planning sessions, links to bikinis and sunscreen, and then I found it. A conversation from 3 weeks ago, the day after that pre-approved credit card offer, must have arrived. "Jess, are you sure you can swing this, Sar? It's so much money." "Sarah, don't you worry about a thing. I've got it handled. Mark's a tightwad, but he has amazing credit. He'll never even know." "Jess, LOL, my hero. What he doesn't know won't hurt him, right? Just make sure you shred everything. Can't wait for our cocktails on the beach." Sumsy. The casual cruelty of it. The laughing face emoji. It stole the breath from my lungs. It was a conspiracy. It was premeditated. But as I kept scrolling, a cold dread began to seep into my bones. The conversation shifted. "Jess, did you talk to him yet?" "Sarah, not yet. I can't. The way he looks at Leo, I just can't." "Jess, you have to, Sarah. You can't keep this from him forever. It's not fair to anyone, especially not to Leo." "Sarah, I know, I'm just so scared. He'll hate me. He'll leave me. I love him, Jess. I really do. This was all a horrible, horrible mistake." What were they talking about? What else couldn't she tell me? It was bigger than the money, bigger than the trip. I scrolled down further, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. And then I saw the picture that Sarah had sent to Jessica just 2 days ago. It wasn't of a beach or a bikini. It was a picture of a small white plastic stick with 2 distinct pink lines. The caption underneath read, "What am I gonna do? It's not Mark's." The world tilted on its axis, the park, the car, and the cool night air pressing against the windows. It all dissolved into a meaningless backdrop. The only reality was the glowing screen in my hands, the picture of the positive pregnancy test, and the 7 words that shattered my entire existence. "What am I going to do? It's not Mark's." I read it again and again. My brain refused to process it. It was like trying to read a foreign language. The meaning just wouldn't connect. It's not Mark's. The words echoed in the silent car, a deafening pronouncement of my own obsolescence. Leo, my son. The beautiful, giggling 1-year-old boy sleeping in his crib back at the apartment. The boy with my dark hair and my father's smile. The boy I had held moments after he was born, weeping with a love so fierce it terrified me. My son. Was he even mine? No, the message was recent. This was a new pregnancy. The realization didn't bring relief, only a different, more insidious kind of horror. The financial betrayal was a gaping wound, but this was a dagger twisting in that wound. It wasn't just that she had cheated on me, it was the context, the lies, the theft, the secret vacation. It wasn't a desperate attempt to have fun as she'd claimed. It was a frantic escape plan. She was pregnant with another man's child, and instead of facing me, she had decided to drain our life savings and run away to the Maldives with her sister. My body started to shake, a violent, uncontrollable tremor that began in my hands and spread through my entire frame. I felt a primal scream building in my chest, a roar of anguish and fury that I had to physically choke back down. I couldn't lose control, not here. I needed to think. I needed a plan. I scrolled through the messages again, my mind now a cold, analytical machine. The shock had frozen my emotions, leaving only a razor-sharp need for information. Who was it? When? How? The answers weren't there in the texts. The conversation with Jessica was cryptic, full of pronouns and vague references. "He wants you to tell him," Jessica had texted. "He's not a bad guy, Sar. He'll want to be involved." "Involved in what?" Sarah had replied. "Destroying my marriage? Destroying Mark's life? No, I can't. I'm going to handle this. Handle this." The same phrase she'd used about the money for the trip. Her idea of handling things was to lie, steal, and run. The rage came back, cold and pure. This wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated pattern of behavior. She saw our marriage, my trust, our shared finances. I was nothing more than an obstacle to be managed and manipulated for her own selfish desires. My first instinct was to drive back to the apartment, to kick down the door and confront her with the phone, to scream and rage until the walls shook. But what would that accomplish? She would cry. She would deny it. She would twist the narrative until somehow I was the bad guy for invading her privacy. She had already proven she was a masterful liar. No, a confrontation now would be a mistake. I needed more than a screenshot. I needed undeniable proof. I needed a name. I drove home, the 15-minute trip feeling like an eternity. Every stoplight, every car that cut me off was a test of my crumbling sanity. I parked the car down the street, not wanting her to hear me pull in. I let myself into the apartment as quietly as I could. The lights were off. The only sound was the gentle hum of the baby monitor on the entryway table. I picked it up. Through the static, I could hear Leo's soft, rhythmic breathing. A wave of love, so powerful it buckled my knees, washed over me. He was my son. I knew it in my bones. He was the only thing in this disaster that was real, the only thing that mattered, and I would protect him. I would burn the world down to protect him. Sarah was asleep on the couch, her tear-streaked face illuminated by the faint glow of the television. Her phone was on the coffee table just inches from her hand. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. I crept into the room, my every movement deliberate, silent. I held my breath as I reached for the phone. My fingers brushed the cool glass screen, and I had it. I retreated back to the hallway, my back pressed against the wall, my pulse thundering in my ears. I knew her passcode. It was Leo's birthday. The irony was a bitter pill. The phone unlocked. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. I went straight to her messages. The thread with Jessica was right there at the top, but I scrolled past it. I went to her call log. My eyes scanned the recent numbers. Her mom, a few friends, and then one name, repeated over and over again for the past month. Late-night calls, Multiple calls a day. A name I knew. David. David was my friend. Or, I had thought he was. We'd known each other since college. He was at our wedding. He was a groomsman. He'd held Leo at the hospital. He'd come over for barbecues. He'd helped me fix the leaky sink just 2 months ago. David. My funny, dependable, seemingly harmless friend. The text between them confirmed everything. It had been going on for 3 months. It started with harmless lunches while I was at work. It escalated quickly. The messages were filled with sickening pet names, inside jokes, and explicit details of their trysts, many of which had taken place in my own home, in my own bed. I felt the floor drop out from under me. The betrayal was so absolute, so complete, it was almost surreal. My wife and my best friend, a cliché so painful I couldn't breathe. I scrolled to the most recent messages from that afternoon after I had left. Sarah, he knows about the money. He left. I think he's going to leave me. David, just breathe, baby. It's for the best. This is our chance. We can finally be together. You, me, and the baby. Sarah, I'm so scared. I've ruined everything. David, no, you haven't. You've fixed it. I'll be there tomorrow morning to help you pack. Mark won't be there. We'll be on a plane to the Maldives before he even knows what's happening. I transferred you the rest of the money for your fun. It's all going to be okay. I love you. Tomorrow morning. They were leaving tomorrow morning. He was coming here, to my home, to pack up my wife and help her flee the country with my stolen money after she had cheated on me with him and gotten pregnant with his child. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The $300 transfer for fun money. The one that had emptied our account and caused my card to be declined. It hadn't come from our account. I pulled up my banking app again, a new horrifying suspicion dawning. The Zelle and Venmo transfers were listed by name. The last one wasn't from our account to Jessica. It was an incoming transfer from David Miller. He had helped her drain my account. He was in on it all. Not just the affair, but the theft. He'd given her the final push of cash she needed, knowing it was the last of my money, the final nail in my financial coffin. And now he was coming here, to my home, to take my wife. He thought I wouldn't be here. He thought I'd be at my parents', licking my wounds. But I wasn't. I was here. And I would be waiting for him. I put the phone back on the coffee table, exactly where I'd found it. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, my movements steady and calm. The rage had cooled and hardened into something else entirely. It was a cold, clear certainty. This wasn't just going to end. It was going to end on my terms. I had a few hours until sunrise, a few hours until David walked into my home expecting to find my crying, packed wife. He wasn't going to find that. He was going to find me. And I wasn't just going to confront him. I was going to make sure that by the time I was done, his life and Sarah's would be just as demolished as mine. I had one more call to make. I pulled out my phone and dialed David's wife. The phone rang 4 times. I almost hung up, my nerve faltering in the pre-dawn stillness of my ruined life. Then a sleepy, groggy voice answered. "Hello? Emily?" I asked, my own voice sounding like a stranger's. "It's Mark Davis." "Mark? My God, it's 5 in the morning. Is everything okay?" Her voice was thick with sleep but laced with immediate concern. Emily was a good person, a kind, unassuming woman who adored her husband. My stomach twisted into a knot of pity and disgust. "No, Emily, nothing is okay," I said, the words coming out flat and heavy. "I'm sorry to do this, I truly am. But there's something you need to know. Can you meet me? In 1 hour, there's a 24-hour diner off the highway, the Golden Griddle. I'll text you the address. And Emily, come alone. Don't wake up David." There was a pause, then a hesitant, "Okay." "Mark, you're scaring me." "You should be scared," I said, and hung up. The next hour was a blur of cold, methodical preparation. I went into our home office and logged into my laptop. I took screenshots of everything. the text messages between Sarah and David, and the text messages between Sarah and Jessica, especially the part about my amazing credit that I'd never know about. I took screenshots of the Zelle and Venmo transactions, highlighting the final payment from David. I printed the booking confirmation for the Maldives. I printed the statement for the fraudulent credit card. I created a folder on a USB drive and copied everything. I made 2 sets of printouts. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about evidence. As I worked, Sarah stirred on the couch, mumbling in her sleep. I looked at her, the woman I had promised to love and cherish, and I felt nothing. The love had been burned out of me, leaving behind only the cold ashes of betrayal. I met Emily at the diner. She was huddled in a booth, clutching a coffee cup, her face pale with anxiety. I sat down opposite her and slid one of the folders across the table. I didn't say a word. I just watched as she opened it. I watched her eyes scan the first page, a transcript of the most damning texts. I saw the confusion morph into disbelief, then horror, then a deep, soul-crushing anguish that I knew intimately. Her hand flew to her mouth, stifling a sob. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a universe of pain. "I had to show you," I said softly. "He's planning on leaving you this morning. He's coming to my apartment to pick up Sarah. They're flying to the Maldives today, with money they stole from me and a baby that he and Sarah made behind our backs." The tears streamed down her face, but she nodded, a strange resolve hardening her features. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to let him walk into the trap," I said, "and I'd like you to be there when I spring it." At 7:30 a.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee I couldn't taste. Emily was in Leo's room, her car parked a block away. We had agreed she would wait there, out of sight. I had already called the airline and, posing as myself with all the correct confirmation details, canceled the tickets for Sarah and Jessica, securing a full refund to the fraudulent card. Then I had called the credit card company's fraud department. I explained the situation calmly and rationally. They froze the card and opened an investigation immediately. The 2 pillars of their grand escape were already gone. They just didn't know it yet. Sarah woke up around 7:45. She saw me at the table and flinched. "Mark, you're here. I thought you were at your parents'." "Plans change," I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. I just stared at her. She couldn't meet my gaze. She busied herself making coffee, her movements jerky and nervous. Her packed suitcase was sitting by the front door. At exactly 8 a.m., there was a knock. Sarah's head shot up, her eyes wide with a mixture of hope and terror. "I'll get it," I said, standing up slowly. I opened the door, and there he was. David, my best friend. He had a stupid, lovesick grin on his face that vanished the moment he saw me. He looked like he'd been electrocuted. His eyes darted past me, searching for Sarah. "Mark," he stammered. What are you doing here?" "I live here," I said, my voice dangerously calm. I stepped aside. "Come on in, Dave. We were just waiting for you." He hesitated, but Sarah was now standing in the doorway to the kitchen, her face ashen. And he stepped inside, and I shut the door behind him, the click of the lock echoing in the tense silence. "What's going on?" he asked, trying to sound brave. I didn't answer. I just walked back to the kitchen table and gestured to the folder sitting there. "Have a look," I said. He looked at Sarah, who just shook her head, tears already welling in her eyes. Hesitantly, he opened the folder. His face went from confusion to sheer, unadulterated panic as he saw the printed text messages, the bank statements, the vacation itinerary. "How?" he whispered, looking up at me. "You got sloppy," I said. "Both of you. You thought I was stupid. A tightwad, so focused on his boring life that he wouldn't notice his wife and his best friend robbing him blind and planning to run away with their unborn child." "Mark, I can explain," Sarah started, taking a step forward. "No," I said, holding up a hand. "You don't get to talk. Not yet." I turned my attention back to David. You came into my home. You ate at my table. You held my son. And all the while, you were sleeping with my wife and helping her steal from me. You helped her commit a felony, Dave. Identity theft, credit card fraud. That's hard time. David's face was chalk white. It wasn't like that. Oh, it was exactly like that, I said. Just then, the door to Leo's bedroom opened. Emily walked out, her face a stoic mask of grief. David looked like he had seen a ghost. "Emily?" he choked out. What are you—" "She knows David," I said. "She knows everything." Emily walked over and placed her wedding ring on the table in front of him. She didn't say a word. She just gave him a look of pure contempt and then turned to Sarah. "I hope you're happy," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "I hope you're both happy in the wreckage you've made of all our lives." And then I laid out my terms. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. "The trip is canceled. The fraudulent credit card is frozen and under investigation. Sarah, you're going to pack a bag with your personal belongings, and you are going to leave this apartment. You will sign whatever divorce papers my lawyer drafts, and you will not contest my request for full custody of Leo. If you do, I will hand this folder over to the police. Isa and I will press charges for fraud and identity theft. You will go to jail, and you will lose your son anyway." She stared at me, her mouth agape. "You can't do that." "Watch me," I said. I turned to David. "And you are going to sign a confession, detailing your part in the fraud, and you are going to repay every single cent that was stolen, including the $9,000 on that credit card. You'll liquidate whatever you need to. You'll sell your car. I don't care. The first payment is due in 7 days. If I don't see it, I go to the police, and Emily gets this folder to use in your divorce, which I imagine will be swift and brutal." Silence. The two of them just stood there, broken and exposed. The grand escape had become a dead end. There was nowhere left to run. Sarah broke first, collapsing into sobs. David just stared at his wedding ring on the table, a man completely and utterly defeated. It's been 6 months. The divorce is final. I have full custody of Leo, and Sarah has supervised visitation, which she rarely uses. She and David are still together, from what I hear, living in a cramped apartment across town, buried under the debt he is slowly paying back to me. Emily divorced him, taking him for everything she was legally entitled to. Every month, a check from David arrives like clockwork. It's not about the money anymore. It's about the principle. It's a constant reminder of their betrayal and of my victory. Sometimes, late at night when Leo is sleeping, I sit in the quiet of the apartment and think about it all. The rage is gone, replaced by a deep, weary sadness for the life I thought I had. But then I look at my son, so perfect and innocent, and I know I made the right choice. I protected him. I tore down the rotten structure of my marriage to build something new and honest for him, on my own. It's not the life I planned, but it's a life free of lies. And for the first time in a long time, that feels like enough.